Thank you so much for your time. We're going to cover in the next hour how to build an effective regulatory intelligence system. This is mainly for MedTech, pharma, life sciences. I can see for the audience are in different locations all over the globe. So obviously this affects, organizations and professionals from different type of areas and as well different type of jurisdictions. So my focus on this is going to be to cover the basic principles of those regulatory intelligence systems, but as well like to cover from the perspective of us building a technology to make obviously this process much more efficient, how we can obviously link those specific activities and tasks to make it as well much more productivity for you, but as well much more control. So my presentation is obviously focus on MedTech, pharma, life sciences. Those are the customers that obviously we have. So thank you so much for joining. We will start now with the presentation. So just to start with, this is a very short slide, but just about the relevance, why we can talk about this topic. And obviously we can talk about this topic. Myself, I've been involved quite a lot over the last years in terms of like regulatory processes, submissions, and so on. In terms of the company, we have our mission in terms of the enable professionals to focus on what really matters, especially to make much faster and better research, intelligence, compliance, and data management. We have a really good number of organizations that they are customers, and we are growing every month as well. We've been through our own certifications, so we're ISO 27001 and so on. So obviously we lead by example as well, just to meet with the regulations and compliance. So our platform is used by a lot of different type of organizations as well. What is our relevance again is because we cover from global data to software products, software solutions. So we have a unique approach that we know a lot about data and we know a lot about software products and which type of technologies can work for organizations and for professionals. In terms of the platform, what we cover, so you understand in more detail, is global data from global countries, all the countries that exist on Earth, from the perspective of regulatory clinical market. And then we have a specific software products that are related to regulatory, clinical, market, and work management. So I will not cover obviously any clinical literature, reference management, and so on, market, PMS, and work management. I will centralize, obviously, I will focus on this session more in the regulatory news, compliance manager, regulatory research, and so on. And as well, what is the relevance to this topic is because our company, my team, we cover 225 countries in more than 15 regulatory areas, and we are increasing this. What it means is we are on top of anything that is happening all over the world, from the MedTech, pharma, trials, digital health, cosmetics, but as well environmental, packaging, data privacy, cybersecurity, and many more, including as well artificial intelligence. And then we have profiles, a lot of databases related to this information that comes sometimes not that clean, from authorities. As well, to emphasize that we have country summary requirements that obviously we create those summaries. They are created, and as well they are obviously reviewed by the professionals within our teams. So let's start with the regulatory intelligence process. Let's start with the presentation, right? So one of the key things for us to understand is what was not needed years ago is now a must for organizations to survive. And most of the organizations obviously are still using processes that they are dated from 10 years, 15 years ago. I always said when I was in big companies or small companies 10, 15 years ago, my life was quite good in terms of updates because there was one update of a FDA guidance every time or every quarter, or 2 or 3 per year. There were not a lot of updates, so I have time to print it, to take it with me, to take different notes, and to present it to the team. Obviously, this is changing. Obviously, for the technologies allowing obviously organizations or authorities to share information much faster, but from the perspective of authorities, they regulate or they have more ability to regulate or more knowledge to regulate. So this is not only about FDA as well, European Union and so on. Now any country, they creating their own regulations, their own guidance, and not all the time are fully aligned with the big players. So one of the key things for us to understand is as well, like they keep coming. So obviously we need to do something with the waves because they will keep coming. It's not something that is gonna stop tomorrow, and it's not something that we can magically solve with a manual process. Just to give you a bit of perspective, in terms of MedTech regulatory updates, so we can do them in pharma as well. The in pharma is actually much higher in terms of the authorities news. Is there were over the last year 1,519 regulatory updates, and more than 25% they come from the European Union as well. So it just gives you which areas are giving you more updates or more impact assessments to do. You have guidance, you have regulations, and obviously for any organization, any professional, you need to perform a systematic review. You need to perform an impact assessment to understand, does it impact my products? Does it impact my QMS? Does it impact any of the activities, operations that my organization is doing? So obviously, if your products, they cover not only MedTech, but as well artificial intelligence or electrical safety, environmental packaging, obviously you will need to add to this number all those regulatory areas. So obviously you need to multiply these waves or this effect in terms of like the number of updates to the regulatory areas that you cover. And just to give you some real data as well from our platform is you can see the trends. MedTech, pharma, technical standards, AI, global authorities news, cybersecurity, data privacy is all the different regulatory areas. You can see there is an increase. So one of the key questions I always ask, and this is how you can obviously verify the maturity of your company in the regulatory intelligence, is how do you search for any update first? Second, how you review the impact of those, and third, do you know right now how many regulations and guidance are you in compliance right now? So if I ask you, could you give me a number or how many regulations in how many countries and how many guidance? Sometimes this obviously takes a lot of manual work and is very difficult to keep up to date. So that will give you a level of maturity in terms of how good is your regulatory intelligence systems. So just to get into the topic, what are the key elements that are necessary for these regulatory intelligence systems? So obviously, the first one is to have access to global data. You need to have continuous and instant access to global data. You need to have as well, or ensure that that is trusted information. That's very important topic as well. To cover, do you have trusted sources? Do you go directly to the authorities? Do you use suppliers that go directly to the authorities, that they use the links that you can verify the information? The second one is, how do you manage those updates? So obviously you're going to have updates every time. So you need to obviously manage those reviews, manage the work. So obviously anytime there is any change, it could be from internal, it could be from an audit, it could be from external, any regulation, any new guidance. You need to plan any actions or activities to remediate or to cover those gaps. The fourth part is how you manage the data. So obviously you need to have repositories, you need to have information and data where you can inquiry, and those, they need to be ready for you to inquiry. And the fifth element obviously is very important, is you need to have very good professionals. So you can have the best system with different type of software, data, and so on. But if you don't have good professionals making good decisions or keeping obviously the work, obviously that would be very difficult. In terms of the good professionals, human knowledge, experience, ethics, obviously with the same piece of information, we can make different type of regulatory decisions, and as well training. So obviously emphasize the training in terms of how to make decisions, how to do the right interpretations, how to find the people that they can do the right interpretations. And all of this, you should be able in a regulatory intelligence system as well to do our reporting in real time. So you will be able to see instantly what is the regulation in a specific country, how what is the progress in terms of your reviews, how is your progress in terms of work, in terms of data. Could you tell me which products are manufactured or by a specific company, or which products you have registered in a specific country? So all of that you should be able obviously to report at any given time. So obviously to be continuous and effective, and especially in a process, can we build this manually, or can we just build this with digital tools and software? So this is what we will explore in this session. And to start, in terms of the process, I always use this practical example, right? So you have those steps. I divided as well the 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 throughout the process. One of the key things for you is the step one is being aware of the news, the updates, and how you just organize that repository in a database. Obviously, you look into the websites and the authorities' news and so on, that information is never organized. So you need to copy the title, the source, the link. And if you need to monitor more than one authority, you will find out that actually the authorities, they publish the information completely different, or they use different type of websites or systems. So obviously the first thing is how you are aware of the updates, news, and data. And remember, this could be as well from internal sources. And obviously, for what is important for you is to collate all that information in a repository that you can look any given time and you can review that information. So obviously, in the first step, you need to define the scope. You need to be able to know what are the specific countries, what are the specific standards, what are the specific scope that you need to have in your monitoring system. The second one is how you're going to review those specific updates and how do you do the impact assessment. So you will see that I have customized here. So this is where, depending on the organization, you will have different type of questions that you need to inquire to those updates. So you can say, does it impact my QMS? Does it impact my country registrations? Is this critical, not critical? So obviously that will help you to understand what is the impact and as well which actions you will be able to create, which is always the part where it gets a bit more complicated, how to link all this information and create the actions and ensure that implementation has been effectively implemented. So obviously for the customization, obviously depending on the organization, you will have different type of decisions. And that's very normal because that will depend on your human capital, your training, and your experience. And one of the key parts that I want to emphasize as well is if you had made those decisions, you implemented those actions, then you have learned obviously how to manage those specific gray areas or how do you you assess those specific updates. So obviously, the more you have context reality or a specific topic or specific information, you are building knowledge. And then the next time, obviously, you review your specific updates, you will have a much better understanding, and probably you will do it much more efficient as well. So obviously, having information repositories and as well human capital, training, education, and external help when needed, it will help you to do much more effective reviews. So you will see as well, and I'm pretty sure that you will collect this as well. The more reviews that you do, the more impact assessments you do, the better it becomes, and the more knowledgeable it will be as well. One of the things I always, from my experience, is especially during submission times or doing a specific processes where we needed to build a report is when you learn more, because obviously you need to learn many more topics and obviously do a very good submission. So obviously the more you create, obviously the more you will have a better knowledge. And this applies not only to individuals, but as well as a team. So you will have a much better team in terms of awareness and as well in terms of knowledge. And obviously the fourth element is data repositories. So do you have a list of regulations applied to you, guidance? Do you have all the country registrations? Can you create reports? Can you create inputs to other processes? So obviously that will be very critical as well for you in terms of updating all those systems. And you will see as well from the standards, whether a process is a standard or customized, you will see the more we get into the right side of the slide, the more you need to customize. So obviously the obvious decision to update or to automate your specific steps is on the first one. On the second, third, and fourth, obviously the fifth is much more difficult because it depends on the human capital. But this one, to go to the websites, get the information clean and organized, obviously that can be done by an external machine. That doesn't require a human to do that work manually as well. So this gives, in terms of regulatory intelligence process, a very practical example how the information should be managed. One of the key things that I want to emphasize as well is as long as obviously you have control and you can report where you are in each of those steps, then you can evaluate whether it's effective or not effective. And the second thing is you will be able to decide, okay, I want to digitalize this part, I want to digitize this part, or maybe this not, or maybe I prefer to do this manually. Obviously, my advice is to digitalize everything apart from the human knowledge, because that will give you a lot of leverage as well. So in terms of the different type of pillars, I'm going to go one by one. So I want you just to go into more granularity related to those steps. So obviously the first thing is data collection, cleaning, and structure. So one of the key things for you is to create a process where all the countries' regulatory areas updates are continuously added into a structured data repository. So this means you need to decide, okay, my countries are 65, I have this example, and 6 regulatory areas. So apply MECTEC, electrical safety, environmental, AI, cybersecurity, and privacy. So then you have the scope. So those are the authorities you need to monitor. Those are the regulatory areas that you need to monitor. Obviously, depending on the country, those updates from authorities may be even in different websites. So obviously, you need to map those updates, and as well, you need to be aware anytime they change the websites. And as well, you should add the standards that are applicable to your organization and the jurisdictions, including any adopted standard, consensus, or harmonized standards. So that will create a scope for you. You need to create, obviously, a process that you make this easy to reproduce, accessible, and continuous. Obviously, as a, like professionals or humans, it's much more difficult to deal with this every day or every week, and then keep doing your own work. So obviously manual, it feels like this is not the right solution. Looking at the volume of of updates, but as well the volume of work that has to be done in order to capture everything effectively. So the next thing is you need to be able to research up-to-date information globally. It means like any given time, you need to be able just to search what is the main regulation in a specific country, what is the specific UDI rules for that specific jurisdiction. So just having that in terms of requirements, list of regulations and guidance. One thing that as well to highlight is some authorities updates may require cleaning, and most of them they do actually, because you need to think that the authorities, they are not publishing the information for you, they are publishing that in general. So it doesn't mean that all the information will be relevant to regulatory professionals. So some organizations or some authorities, they may publish a bank holiday celebration, and the next one, it could be a very important regulation of guidance that is applicable to you. So obviously, you need to do that cleaning. Obviously, from our perspective, MedBoard, what we do is we do that cleaning for you. So you don't need to worry about whether the bank holiday goes into the news that you need to review. That's not obviously very, very, very efficient. And then the other things is to consider adding inputs data gained through internal processes. It could be audits, this could be feedback for internal activities. So that's very important as well for you for the data collection, cleaning, and structure. Now, in the second part, how you manage reviews. So once that you have the repository hold the updates, you have the pipeline, you have everything very well defined, you need to review the updates systematically. And obviously, this means that you need to follow always the same and systematic process. And then you can have a review in terms of a screening and the full review of the update. The screening step is very, very useful because you can divide, obviously doing the triage, maybe you can get rid of 50% or 60% or 80% of the news. And then you can have that obviously recorded and what the reason was for not being part of the full review. Obviously, you need to create an appraisal process and you need to quantify the impact once that you are reviewing those. One of the typical questions that we always recommend, and as well we see from our customers, are does it impact the QMS? Does it impact the product registrations? What is the risk level, right? Because if the risk level is very high, you want to be able to highlight that information very quickly through your reporting systems, because you want to highlight this to management, and as well you want to communicate this to other departments. So we always advise to have like several questions that obviously you need to adapt to your organization, to the feedback as well you gained during the past years. But 3 questions that can define the impact of QMS, product registration, and the risk level can give you a really good leverage, especially if you want to quantify a high risk affects the QMS and product registration. You are already categorizing this as something that you need to do. You need to pay attention and you need to do a bit of work. Obviously, you need to involve the subject matter experts when needed or possible and get their feedback recorded. So obviously, as a regulatory professionals, we learn that we cannot know about everything. So sometimes we need help. We need from a different department, or we need a consensus depending on the specific regulatory requirements. So That's very important. And if an update is not applicable, obviously what is important is to record it and the reason why. Why? Because then you can look back in 1 year, 2 years, and understand what is the specific reason, why it was not applicable, why it's not part of your list of regulations and guidance that apply to you. So that's the part of how to manage reviews. This is very important as well. And we always emphasize this to manage reviews periodically. So if you review news every week or every 2 weeks, you will have a few updates to review. If you review this every month, every 3 months, every 6 months, you will have a mountain of updates to review and then to catch up with any updates and so on. So we always recommend to have like in the calendar 15 minutes or 30 minutes every week or every 2 weeks. You go through the updates, done up to date. You already identify the ones that are high risk, and then you can move on. So that's one of the key areas as well to get the pipeline to assess, but as well just to keep obviously the work moving with the reviews. Obviously, anytime that there is an update, you will need to assign as well, and there is an impact likely is the likelihood that you need to assign a task and actions, is very high. So obviously you need to assign or you need to create the actions linked to that regulatory update. You need to be strict as well with the deadline or responsible person for the task to ensure that it's implemented. We see a lot of gaps are in the implementation phase. So something's been identified, is in a disconnected system, and it doesn't communicate very well. It just got lost in an email, and then obviously that specific action, it doesn't get performed. So obviously to monitor those regulatory updates with open task and risk level is very, very important, because then you have reporting systems that you can see, okay, what are the open tasks, what are the risk levels of those tasks? Then you can quantify as well how critical is the situation. Very important as well for you to build or to have dashboards to report progress and to raise to management when actions are not implemented timely. So you can obviously report if nothing has been completed or something has been completed or everything is completed, because if everything is completed, you need to report that as well, just to show how good you are implementing those actions, or your team, and how effective is the system. And obviously, one thing that is very important is across the board is to understand as well the resources and critical items not getting completed. So why those items are not getting completed is because it's a specific area or expertise area, or is because the lack of resources in general. So that's very important as well for management, as well for you to raise to management anytime during the review process. The fourth element always is to manage data. So obviously after the review and implementation, you should feed that into sources of truth data repositories. So examples are having a legal register, a standards list, regulation list, guidance list, products information, country registrations, where are the submissions that you are going on, the design changes, and so on. So that's very important, because you can report that anytime. And every time you go to those databases, you know that those are always up to date. So that's super critical as well for you, because how many times you will be in a situation where you need to understand what are the country registrations, or whether you are in compliance with a specific regulation. And then you need to spend a lot of time trying to find that information. And secondly, to understand if that information is correct and up to date. So obviously, having a source of truth for those areas will help you massively as well. So having those dashboards as well, report information when needed, management reviews. We have cases where questions being raised during the audits, and then, okay, this is the information reported. These are the products manufactured by this specific physical manufacturer, or these are the reviews we have done over the last year, and that guidance was not applicable because X, Y, and Z. So that's something that obviously by having a system that you can report it is very easy as well, for you to manage those questions. And obviously the most important with managing data is to ensure that the data is always up to date, and obviously to have those proper admin access management rules, so the data is not corrupted as well by unintended actions. So obviously ensuring as well that there are enough resources to keep the data, and responsible people for the data. Remember that if you have a data repository that nobody is responsible for fully, that data may not be up to date all the time. You have someone assigned to that data, you have somebody to report whether it's updated or not, and if not, what is the reason for not having that up to date. So the fifth element, this is about us professionals, human knowledge. And then obviously the human touch is understanding as well how we're going to make those decisions, how we're going to move across those different areas. One of the key questions I always ask is the regulatory logical. When I trained people that start in the regulatory fields, I always say it's not really logical. It tends to be logical, but there are decisions that not always logical. So 1 + 1 is not often two. So it depends as well the interpretation. As you move into different jurisdictions, you will see that there are more exceptions or more deviations from the original rules as well. So one of the key things as well I want you to emphasize as well is to differentiate the data-based decisions with knowledge-based decisions. So we are talking about data-based decisions when there is a clear input-output. So obviously, if you do a review and then you link to a specific product, that's a clear data-based decision. Or you have done a review, this is relevant, that's a data-based decision. But a knowledge-based decision always involves interpretations, gray areas, and obviously depending on the training, knowledge, experience of the person. As well, all the things that are important to understand in these systems is, are the inputs logical? Sometimes they are not. Sometimes, obviously, the regulatory news, the regulatory decisions, the articles, even the new regulations, it takes a lot of time as well just to find what is actually the requirements, what is actually the expectation from the authorities. And one of the key things as well is two people may interpret the same information differently. And that's okay, because obviously that depends on the knowledge and experience and depends as well on the ethics and as well on the training within the company. So two people may perceive risk differently as well. We've seen as well this very much during the COVID time that different jurisdictions were the same risk. They were taking different actions. They were taking different type of remediation activities. So obviously, the more decisions as well we made, the more knowledgeable we become. And it's very important as well to keep the training, education, and processes. So one of the things as well I want to emphasize with these processes is sometimes we get a request that people want a software or an entity to do decisions for them, but they're just collecting things manually from the websites all the time. So one of the things, for us to understand is, first, we need to look into the data management solution, data engineering, and then use our knowledge to make those decisions. So not to use this in the other way around, whether the machine is doing the complicated thing that we should be doing based on interpretation, and we're doing the simple thing, but a lot of manual work. And another thing that I want to emphasize with humans is, as today, especially with regulatory areas, there may be other areas where these machines could be much more efficient and so on. But obviously, if you are in a submission process or you are interacting with authorities, software may not push back in the same way as you will do, because you will have the knowledge to understand that the question maybe is not formulated in the right way, or maybe you have a specific knowledge that you can just push back and say, no, this is because X, Y, and Z. Understand? I always, say the anecdotes when we've been through submissions or through this specific inquiries. Sometimes we receive a question, and this is from the authorities' perspective as well, and a response. And then we need to invite other people to read the paragraph and to see, what do you think? What do they want? What they actually are looking for? So obviously, for us is the knowledge. It has to be very important part of any regulatory system. And then just to emphasize, well, because there is a lot of AI considerations. One thing I will emphasize is the context, and the context is very important for organizations and understanding previous decisions, the relationship with the authorities, the relationship as well with other stakeholders, any feedback they gave you during the last audits years. So obviously that has to be taken in consideration. And an AI system in general will not have all of that information incorporated. They will get better. We will get obviously developments in that side. But one thing that I want to emphasize with this specific slide is, if you are getting the updates manually from the authorities' websites, but you are thinking about AI, I think you should consider your priorities differently. So obviously you need to use more the data engineering. So how you're going to move the data from one point to another much faster and much more organized rather than an entity making decisions. So this is very important as well, for you to understand in this system. So obviously interpretations change to be trained. So you may be like just, like chasing the tail instead of, using your, knowledge for the specific activities that are more related to your role. So obviously, like the key questions as well, if you have, bad data, you will have bad data. And so it's more important data engineering. So if you have the pipelines, then you can think about data science, you can think about AI and so on. So one of the key things for effective intelligence systems is to have a really good data engineering process. So this means like the data, you have a really good foundations and data that is very well organized and clean. Moving to the next one, another must for a system, obviously, is to have reporting. So you can report updates any given time as well. So during the collecting and data structuring, obviously, you need to be able to report instantly the volume of updates from countries, regulatory areas within a period. So you can give a perspective, and as well you can report, to other stakeholders, management reviews, authorities, how many actually you are reviewing. So that will give you as well a really good metric, how many you are reviewing per month or per year. As well, during management reviews, report instantly the relevant items that are impacting the company. Can you report with the bottom how many items are impacting your company, what actions you've been done, and whether those are low, medium, or high risk? So obviously, those are very important because they will give you as well a measurement how well you are implementing those actions. And as well, the other thing is the process outcome. So I always say like, show me your impact assessment report. So are you able to just show me over the last year how many you reviewed, how many they were relevant to you, how many they have an impact, and how many actions you did, and how many of those actions being implemented? That's what we call an impact assessment report. So if you are unable to do that, you need to think ways, obviously, to do it, just to be as well on top. During the management work, what is very important as well is to report instantly any open action, implementation progress, and risk level. So as well, from a team perspective, but as well from a management perspective, just to understand as well why we are not closing the actions, and if we are closing the actions, what is the timelines that we are looking to. So obviously, if any actions are closed, the process, the progress, and the closure date as well. And during the data management stage, obviously reporting instantly how many regulations are you in compliance. In a specific country, how many regulations, guidance, and specific standards are you in compliance. Specific like granular information that it will show that you are on top, and as well, what is the compliance status of any of those. Reporting as well instantly, what is the products information related, or the country's information. This specific product, in which countries are registered, what is the specific update. Do you have any submissions going on? So information related to country registrations, and as well any ongoing action and task that is planned and any gaps. So reporting in general is a very good symptom that your regulatory intelligence system is mature enough, and as well you are able to support the rest of the organization in a very effective way. And obviously, if you're looking into a regulatory intelligence and surveillance system, it doesn't matter whether you are in pre-market, post-market, or you have some products in pre-market and post-market. You need to obviously do regulatory intelligence first to capture the requirements, but second, obviously, to keep up to date for any impact to those requirements. So this is just to emphasize how important it is throughout all the life cycle steps of the products. And in terms of the considerations, the final considerations before we move to a more practical examples, is remember always the 5 elements to have access to global data, manage reviews, manage work, manage data, and human knowledge. And for all, my recommendations are always to divide the steps and conquer, define what processes and tools to use, keep it as simple. If it feels complicated or a lot of work, probably that's not the way to continue. Connect the steps and processes automatically when you can. This means like data pipelines in and out. So for example, in the steps I described before, being aware of an authority news and have that organized in a database. That's a process that is automatic and is clean because it's a in and out pipeline. Obviously, identify a review plan, work instruction, and have an implementation plan as well. We always emphasize from MedBoard, as you know, we offer as well work instructions to implement that in your GSPs or QMS systems. But obviously, you need to have a review plan. This means having those questions ready to answer as well for any updates. You need to have a repository to keep all the information. It could be several repositories. And something to emphasize as well is not every process step can be digitized. So if it's a knowledge-based step, understanding the impact of any specific updates, that is very great. Obviously, that cannot be automated. You need context, you need knowledge, you need probably external help, or you need a subject matter expert within your organization. And obviously, to digitize a process, it has to have define input and define outputs. Even if it's a knowledge-based step, and then you just need to include the feedback. That's a defined input and output of inserting the information, but not obviously about the information, what to do. So obviously, in terms of regulatory, the identification of sources and countries, very essential. Identification of the frequency you're going to collect this information, and implementation of processes and actions, and as well to multiply this for the regulatory areas they apply to you. I know many organizations, MedTech and pharma, because the lack of obviously time or resources, they are only monitoring a really small space of the regulatory scope that they should. So obviously they are always or tend to be up to date with regulatory or MedTech, pharma, but obviously environmental or AI or cybersecurity, data privacy is much more difficult to access. So remember always to cover all the regulatory areas that apply to you. And then just to finalize, one of the key things I want to emphasize is the professional, and the professional. So the system must work for the professional, not the other way around. So if you feel you are doing more work because you're using a system and you're doing more clicks or you're actually doing more actions, obviously you need to question whether that's the right system or not. A system has to work for you and make your team, make yourself much more efficient and produce much more work related to the reviews and the regulatory operations. And what you need to start with defining the inputs and your needs. What are the needs for the professional? So it's all only about you, only about the department, the organization. What are your needs? So for example, I want to be up to date with all the regulatory updates, do an impact assessment, understand the actions, close the actions, and have a repository for products information, all the countries' registrations. That's your inputs. The automated parts of the system are good when following rules, remember, clear input and outputs. And the data engineering is the key process and essential foundation of this system. So if you don't have a really good data engineering process, thinking in more advanced technologies is obviously a lack of time, a lack of effort as well, because you're going to still need to do all that manual work. And we have some organizations came to us that they were monitoring the updates manually in the authorities. Then they will put in the review in another Excel. In the Excel, they will create some actions and move it to another Excel. And then they will have another Excel for products information, country registrations, and the impact. So obviously the data engineering is what you need to solve in these regulatory intelligence systems. If using a software or a system, employ critical thinking and due diligence rather than wishful thinking. We have occasions as well when people say, if I click a button, it's going to tell me what to do in my organization based on this new regulation. No, because it doesn't understand the context. It doesn't understand what are the updates. So today, that's not possible. In the future, as things get more integrated, maybe, there will be inputs that they need to verify, obviously, by the professionals, and we will be much more advanced in terms of sorting even more the amount of work. So use critical thinking instead of wishful thinking as well for the needs of today. And you need to obviously select first the needs and then the process. And just to finalize, the important actor in the system who has to obviously keep learning and have critical thinking, the professional. I always emphasize the more reviews you do, the more submissions you do, the more you are involved with systems as well, the more knowledgeable you become. So that's why the professional has to be at the center of these systems, right, on a side of a system. So this is the end of the area for theoretical. Obviously, what in our experience, what we like to hear, and this is based on the customer survey we're getting, is faster execution, more control, better reporting, better communication, but as well in terms of the quality of the professional, feeling less overwhelmed, more satisfied using the time, or feeling that the work is more stimulating and less repetitive. Those are winning attributes to any professional, because a lot of professionals, they feel that they are not using the knowledge, they're not using their time for what they studied or the experience they have. So this is the end of, obviously, the area for the presentation. Now I would like to cover a bit of, in terms of MedBoard, how to build those things within the system for the pillars that we discussed before. So what I will start is obviously with the how to access to global data. So this is very important as well, to look for any data at any given time. So you can look for specific updates. I can look for Australia UDI. Just have that information, and as well, you want to go to the source, find that information very quickly. Just looking for Australia, for example, and then search for different regulatory areas and understand what are the requirements. So if I click in Australia, MedTech is going to give me the latest updates, but as well, we have summaries for regulatory requirements and summaries, so you can identify what is the main regulation. We keep this always up to date. Understand as well the pre-registration requirements, the QMS certification, registration timelines, fees, changes to registrations, and PMS requirements as well. So what is important is obviously to have access to this data, So from the big search, obviously you can search for MDCG, clinical, understand any requirement based on that. You can just filter as well by those that are events, forms, guidance, get the latest. This is what we mean to have, obviously, instant access to information. If you look into more detail for the global data, remember that in here you can as well search for any products. So obviously you can look into for a specific product, understand what are the adverse events, field safety or FDA actions. Obviously for regulatory, you can look for a specific guidance, you can look for specific regulations, and so on. If you go to regulatory, is adding to those core regulatory areas and additional regulatory areas. So if I click in MedTech, then I'm able to see what are the specific summaries, authorities news, as well as summaries, jurisdictions. So one of the things that we do as well to save a lot of time to professionals is to specify whether it's regulated, not regulated, high regulated, and then obviously you have all those requirements in here. So one of the parts that is very obviously important is how you're going to access to all this information quickly as well from your system. So that's the first part, is to have obviously access to regulatory information. It could be from MedTech, it could be cybersecurity, data privacy, or summaries are related as well to any of those specific regulatory areas, and as well to have access to technical standards. So if you go, for example, pharma biotech, you will have the type of same menu, go to the authorities news, and then you will be able to see the evolution I was mentioning before as well. So accessing to regulatory or to created information, this is the things that we're saying about having this information clean as well. So in here, you will see that we have the type, notice, guidance, whether it's a regulation, and this already comes clean from those websites. So you don't need to go into the website and understand whether that applies to you, doesn't apply to you as a regulatory professional. You will see that all the information comes here with the link is already related to a regulatory professional. Now, this is the first part that I mentioned before. This is obviously to search requirements, to have access to our global data. But obviously, the second part is how manage reviews. So once that you build as well, like your compliance manager, I will go later, you need to monitor that that's continuously up to date. So you will have obviously the systems or the processes to keep that always up to date. So I created one here for MedTech. This can be done for pharma, clinical trials, you have as well the price criteria. So I already created some questions. Does it impact my QMS? Does it impact my product registration? What is the risk level? You can add any question here. You can as well, customize this with free text, single select, table, numeric, and many more. Some companies, they put questions like that: is this urgent? Is this impacting which legal manufacturers this is impacting as well? So obviously you can see that from here as well when you add it. You have reasons for exclusion and score calculations. So already all the information comes clean here. As you can see, I already reviewed some items just to save some time during the review. You are able to, as well to filter because all the information is already clean and organized for you. So I can just see in this period, I have 3 regulations that I should have reviewed. And then the other key thing is when you review the information, so for example, I have this for the NHS, you can just use different analyzers as well, but you can say whether this is relevant, not relevant, and then just move to the next item. So as I'm collecting as well the specific updates, you will see that I already responded to some of the questions in here. And then I can filter those that are high risk level, for example. I don't have any, but I will have one for QMS or impacting the product registrations both together. So it's able to obviously to filter those. And that way you are able to filter as well which items they have an open task. And then you can monitor obviously those items much faster. So you can see these 2 are the 3 that are missing in this total summary as well. So what is important for these systems is obviously to have the scope, ones that you want to monitor, to create an appraisal criteria, and then to review continuously these updates. So obviously, if I go to the relevant, so obviously I can mark this as relevant. I can open this specific guidance, say this is relevant, and then the custom questions will appear here. So I can just say this is impacting, yes, no, what is the risk level, high. And if I need to create an action, I can go directly and here and create an action. So it's very important always to have all the information linked specific with the review and the actions that you are doing. So you can create an action and have the action associated with this item. Now, the first thing, obviously, to look into this is how you're going to review it, who is going to review it, how periodically you're going to review this information. We have in our system manufacturers, they do it. They have as well consultants that they help manufacturers to get this implemented as well. So you need to have this information organized and as well documented, how you're going to review this information. Now, after doing the review, this obviously has different analytics, and as well you can filter by different dates. Is you can sub-filter the items that are relevant for you. I can see all the actions that are relevant, to these items, and then I will be able to see as well all the updates. So you can see I mark different items that are relevant. For example, I have here a regulation. I can use an analyzer as well that we have. So I can see this is related to the MDD, product liability, and MDR. So it just highlights in the document as well. So we use tools, obviously, to facilitate the work as well. If is withdrawing, we have as well, different traceabilities to tell you which one is being withdrawn because there is a new update. The important part in here is always to define which items are obviously impacted, which items as well is creating an action, and as well the risk level. So this will give you a really good reporting matrix to your organization, and as well to verify that you are implementing all the actions any given time. So the the filter questions will help you as well. If you have scores, like I have here, I can as well filter by scores in terms of the risk. And the important thing as well, once that you're reviewing, is you will be able to see I reviewed 75 updates and 8 or 9 that were relevant in this case. And then go back to the export and then have obviously the exporting these results, whether you're going to do a specific report or to move things to the compliance manager. So let's say I want to move these items to the compliance manager. And as I create as well different updates, as you can see here, if I go to the regulatory news, I have for AI, pharma, medtech, and as well, for lifecycle stages in updates. I keep all of those up to date. So obviously you have a continuous, process, and then you have a dashboard that you will be able to see all the regulations, all the standards, procedures, and technical documentation you are in compliance with. So if I click in regulatory documents, this will give me the 17 documents, regulations, guidance that I should be in compliance with. It gives me all the countries, regulatory areas. I can export this anytime. And as well, all of this, you have assigned a compliance status. So obviously your goal is to have everything in compliance. And if anything is being withdrawn, obviously our system tests you out automatically as well. So that's one of the key things, for organizations in terms of the standards. and regulatory documents to have these systems so you know any given time where is the update. And most important, the data is connected. So you have reviewed, for example, the liability one, that have it be before in here, liability, I added this one. It will tell you as well that this is being added by me today. So you have that traceability, and you can always look back and understand, okay, why that regulation was added, why it's part of my scope. So you have that full traceability. One of the important things, for these systems is you can give answers very quickly, whether you have open actions related to procedures, technical documentation, but as well which regulations you are in compliance, standards, procedures, technical documentation, and link with those pipelines that you have those updates in terms of the regulatory areas. And obviously these links as well, because obviously you can link standard regulatory documents to products information. So key questions always related to this product, in which countries is registered, how many registrations, so I can see 19. So you can see as well by product. So this is a very important thing as well, understanding the legal manufacturers by number of products, and have all of these connected. And if we go into the country registrations, the same way, just to understand how many product registrations, whether a specific, for example, a specific update is being affected by, or is affecting a certificate. So you can link that certificate to a specific action. And then obviously you can highlight as well any updates related to operators, certificates, and so on. So I can see, for example, if I go to countries, in this case, I have one action open for European Union, another for Japan, another for Australia. And this could be as well related to any updates. Or if I go to the compliance manager, I would see that I have two for the SOP, and one of them is coming from a systematic review. So that way you keep obviously all the data connected, and you can see as well any open tasks related to the system. So as I mentioned before, first, how you access to information, the first pillar. Second, obviously, how you review that information continuously. The third, obviously, how you implement those actions. So you have the task, so that will give you the implementation. And fourth, obviously, how you have those data processes, data management, data repositories to list all regulations, guidance, standards that apply to you, but as well in terms of products information, claims, different type of information linked to the products having there, and as well in terms of the country registrations, which operators, which certificates, when they expire, and having all this information, which submissions are open, and so on. So obviously the most important part I was mentioning the systems is or are the people, and for that obviously you need the skills as well to make those decisions very quickly. Obviously systems like us in terms of regulatory intelligence system allows you to make more decisions, because obviously you're spending less time doing the copy and pasting and so on. So obviously it's very important that the person or the teams are trained for those specific activities or those specific roles, whether it could be regulatory intelligence, regulatory research, or regulatory operations. So I have 5 minutes, obviously, for the presentation. I hope this gives you a really good overview in terms of the key factors, as well like a small overview over the system for those processes. Obviously, your platform covers much more, but obviously, I would like to have time for any questions. So obviously, if you have any question, you can put in the chat, or you can as well mention to Antonella as well, so we can cover those.
Thank you, Ivan, for the presentation. It was really interesting. We actually do have already a few questions. I left them for the end, so you can address them. The first one was for regulations that are issued in local languages, how do we manage them? So the regulations that are issued in other languages that is not English, I guess, in this sense.
So the first thing that we do is we always translate titles. We obviously translate like paragraphs, and then we do translations. The most important thing with translations, what we believe to make you more efficient, is how you can read the title and the paragraph, because you can do the triage much faster. If you need to do a full text review, probably you need to engage with the local person in that specific area, and a lot of interpretation may come in those processes. But obviously, from our system, what we do is we translate everything into English.
Okay, we have another one for the standards. how to list the standards if you know that new standards that don't exist yet will be developing in the area of a technical area. How do you search for those? As a consultant that has many clients, how do you approach this appraisal process where the organization are all different, and how do you consider the review process? So any suggestion on how to manage the upcoming also standards in a sense with different scopes?
So the first question is, this is the same for authorities. Obviously, we have automated systems that they are monitoring all those areas. Obviously, the more we monitor, the more we cover. But sometimes the authorities or the standards, obviously, the sooner that we get those standards in terms of the developing, then we capture them. So we are obviously have those automated systems. As we grow as well, we are creating even more robust systems to capture those. So we are very confident of what we capture right now. There could be as well standards that are new or in a different type of regulatory area that for us is very simple to, very easy to add as well. So that's an area obviously we don't have the scope because we don't have the scope in the, but we keep overall systems and our teams to keep researching for those. And in terms of the appraisal process, I think the appraisals, they need to be different. And that's why the human knowledge is very important. And that's why having a consultant or having someone within house that knows how to research or how to appraise those will be obviously very, very important. So obviously we're giving the key areas, like does it impact the QMS, does it impact the product registrations, what is the risk level? But we've seen from customers that can go to 7 questions or even can go to just 1 or 2 questions. So that is where the knowledge and experience has to be applied. So for example, if you have a feedback from a specific audit that you need to manage a specific parameter in your reviews, you will need to consider obviously to add that as a remediation. So that's an evolving process, and that's where the knowledge, whether it's in-house or whether it's a consultant, that will help to standardize that information.
Thank you. We have another question. Is it possible to transfer metrics generated by MedBoard to third-party business intelligence platform, for example, Power BI, so to transfer the information, the data?
I think for that question, I will need to know more what are the specific requirements as we are building more metrics, for our platform. Maybe you can do those in-house. Obviously, we have API systems that they can be connected, but it would be obviously that's more like specific case to understand which parameters they need to require it as well.
Another one is on AI. So how AI support this system? How AI is integrated in MedBoard too?
So in terms of the AI, so we have from capturing the information, cleaning the information, organizing the information, as well in systems where you can extract that information from PDFs, from a specific documentation, and so on. So it's throughout the system. We obviously use more like NLP. We have more like control over the regulatory information, over the information. So the AI is obviously supporting the system, obviously to make more efficient too, as well, having specific inputs that we can use for any review. Our goal with AI is more to support the professional rather than just to replace it. So there are different type of areas where the AI is supporting this platform.
Okay. We don't have any questions for the moment. So if anyone has other questions, you can write them in the chat or in the Q&A session.
Yeah, any questions, you can write it to us after, and we're very happy as well to answer those. So yeah, I think we arrived to the end of the presentation. Thank you, Antonella, for passing those questions. Sometimes with 2 screens is a bit difficult, so thank you so much for supporting with this. Any questions? I see like there's a mix of customers, or there are no customers. Just contact us obviously anytime. We will be obviously very happy to answer any question, to support, and as well if anyone wants to see the product or assign to the specific needs that they have, obviously we are happy to show the product. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much as well to spend our time. We will make this video available as well. So I hope you enjoy it, and as well you have some key takeaways to take with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.